You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. I'm your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'm a public health entrepreneur. I have over 20 years of experience in both healthcare and public health, and I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs along the way. I've been a podcaster since 2017. So although this podcast is new, I've been at it for quite a while. I'm really excited to have a guest on this episode with me, a very dear colleague of mine. You know, we discuss all things at this intersection of public health and entrepreneurships on this podcast. And I'm starting to bring some of my colleagues in to share their journey, their stories, their businesses with us on this episode for inspiration. So welcome, Andrea, to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? I hope everyone's doing well today.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm always excited to have a guest on here, but I especially enjoy bringing on people that I've worked with personally, and I've watched your business grow. I'm such a cheerleader in the background, but such a fan of what you're doing. So thank you for taking some time and coming on to this podcast to share about what you do. Let's start with a little introduction because I'm geeking out a little bit. I know you, I'm a fan, but introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business and, of course, the name of your business and what you do.
Okay, sure. So my name is Andrea Lowe. The name of my business is Social Impact Studio Consulting, LLC. I work with health and human services, nonprofit, and government agencies, helping them increase their impact through strategic planning, policy development, and strategic program reviews.
Love that introduction. Of course, I'm reminded of our dear friend that we both know, Danette Smith, who was working with the state of Nebraska. And you worked with her in the past. I met her through a different colleague and invited her to our other podcast. And over conversation, realized that you both knew each other. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of reminds us of how small our world is, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, we've worked together on and off since 2016, 2015, something like that. So it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about your business because Social Impact Studios. So one of the questions I love asking about is, when did you start? So when did you become interested in public health as a career, even before business?
So that was quite a while ago. I would say when I was younger, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I had some different disorders as a young child. So I was in and out of the hospital a lot. So like people I knew were like medical professionals, and I had some really great pediatricians, and I was like, I'm going to be a pediatrician when I grow up, amongst other career ideas that had nothing to do with health. But by the time I was getting ready to finish my undergraduate degree, I realized I really didn't want to go to school for that long. I was like, oh my gosh, medical school just seems daunting. I need not that much right now. And so when I was going to our career services to look up other health related careers, because I'm still committed to supporting young people, supporting communities, supporting health in general, that's where I actually found out about public health. I read about it in a book of potential grad degrees, which I'd never really heard of it before in my life. And I was looking into it more from there. And I thought, wow, this would be great. I could support whole communities and not just individual health. And so I looked into different grad programs for my MPH and took it from there.
That's amazing. I think it's what you're describing, kind of resonates with me. It's that feeling of once you figure out, public health and what it is, it's almost like, this is really what I wanted, right? Because I also started that pre-med track myself, and discovering public health was like the ultimate best fit. So I love that. And also, whenever we can start to build out of our own experiences, I think that connects that passion to what we do and how we show up, which is important as an entrepreneur. You will know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in what ways would you say that previous experiences have helped prepare you for consulting and this journey of entrepreneurship?
I think of that in a couple of different ways. One is I've always been a problem solver. There's most of my career, most of my jobs that I've had, and I've worked in both local government, state government, I've worked for nonprofit organizations. They've all involved some element of problem solving of like, okay, my boss wants this. I really don't know how to get this, but we're going to figure out how to get it. Like if I need to talk to a bunch of people or I need to like create a program around it, like let me figure out what this could look like. What are all the details that need to be involved and how do I accomplish that? And then I work to build that by that timeline of my boss. And then also really around like being able to understand your client, being able to understand the people that you're working with and what they need, what motivates them. I've also spent quite a bit of time, some of the work that I've done has been in policy and advocacy. And a big part of that is being able to communicate and message what you're interested in to others, and particularly others who may or may not see things the way that you see them. So in order to do so, you really got to understand where they're coming from, what motivates them, what their priorities are, and then figure out for them, like, you know, how can my priority fit within their priorities or why they should care about my priority. And I feel like that's also been something that's helped me with consulting as well and really understanding my clients.
Yeah, that's great too, because a lot of what you described, we don't realize in the moment or as we're going through that job or those experiences that that's going to serve us in a different way or could be beneficial down the road. But I think that all of what we do in our roles and work can in some way contribute to this, you know, what we need, the skill set that we need as entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, you kind of niche in health and human services. What led you to that kind of supporting in that specific area or that kind of niche?
Sure. So actually, this connects really well with Danette, who you mentioned earlier. Prior to working with her the first time, like I've pretty much just been doing public health work, whether it was policy advocacy, whether it was program management, whether it was community development type work. It was pretty heavily in public health, even though it kind of drifted into like specific areas such as violence prevention, mental health, some areas that really cross over with human services. But she actually gave me my first job working for our local human services department. And there I was doing a lot of I was a strategic analyst. So I was doing a lot of working across all of the divisions within our department and then also with a lot of our external partners. And that gave me a lot of experience working with and understanding the social services system, child welfare, the community behavioral health system in our communities. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed kind of being at that nexus and providing like a public health approach to that work, but then also understanding a human services approach as it connects back with public health. And so since then, I've done a lot of work across both really kind of the whole spectrum of health and human services and wanted to continue that through my consulting business, which I've started back in 2022. So still 2 years old and growing, but been able to find those opportunities to build at that nexus since then as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, I'm really glad I asked that question because I just learned something new and I've known you for a very long time, but I just learned something new. I understand it, I guess, a little differently. And I think that there's often talk about a superpower. If you find that overlap, you know, where these two seemingly different industries have that overlap, you know, with public health, I think of it as a superpower if you can serve in that space because you have the ability to have a much greater impact. It's almost amplified exponentially because of the way that, like you said, the approach to maybe human health and human services problems with this public health lens or perspective brings something slightly different that the people are really open for and vice versa. So I see that. And we've seen that a lot throughout the pandemic with, you know, information technology and public health. Like we need to develop applications and software that can help us do public health better. So there's that, you know, very seemingly different, but that overlap. So yeah, I just learned a personal little aha moment about your niche and what you're doing. So I know a lot of people, myself included, I started my business when I was working a full-time job and I started not sure where it was really going. So I ran my business part-time, so to speak, while I was working a full-time job, and opportunities really grew and I ended up leaving that job. And this is full-time what I do, running my business for the last several years. Some people start right out the gate full-time with their business. So for you, are you working another job and we're operating your business? Or are you full-time 100% in your business? Like, what does that look like for you?
I jumped in full time, and that was actually like more of a opportunity, I guess, as a result of an opportunity, because we moved and my husband got a new job. And so it really was an opportunity for me to think about, okay, should I find a new job, recognizing we're moving to a new area where I don't necessarily have the connections to be able to get something immediately? Or do I just kind of create a business of my own and just really start consulting, which I had been thinking about doing for at least a year or so already. And so it just really worked out that I started my business. I had my first client right away and kind of started building it from there.
I love that answer too, because I've listened to a lot of different scenarios. If you can imagine, with coaching for a long time and helping people getting started and growing businesses. And I think that when people jump in like that, when they go right into it, that is, to me, like one of the best positions, because you have that you have a little fire lit under you. Like, I'm going to do this. You don't really have the luxury of being afraid and being scared for a while. You've got to kind of push through those fears and do it and take the action and make a decision to, invest in yourself and to get out there and be present and visible with your business and talk to people. And you've got to. And I like that. And I think that helps people. Everyone that I know that has done that I've worked with on that, it's almost like their business, there's a little bit of a lull at the beginning, of course, right? Where you're investing and you're putting together, but you find that first client a little faster, and then you get to that next client a little faster. And then there's this momentum that kicks in. So really, I like that. It's not that you don't have the fear. It's just you push through it, a little bit faster than when you're kind of holding on to the regular job that's supporting you, kind of cushioning you.
For me, there was a lot I needed to learn about business and the business side of things and running one, that extra time actually helped me kind of figure out, okay, the operations side of things, which was new to me, because it's very different running your business than running a government office or being part of a larger agency.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's the part where I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Let's start with, I want to hear the best and kind of maybe the worst, or, not so. We're going to be honest. Let's show them the ugly parts. Let's start with on the upside of things. What do you like most about consulting and entrepreneurship?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. One, my clients for sure, because I get to work with amazing people every day. I love every single one of my clients, and I feel like that's a blessing, to have such amazing people that you get to work for and just really help. They're doing amazing things in the world. And so I just get to, for me to be able to say, oh, wow, I get to be a little piece of helping you do more amazing things. It just makes me really excited. So that's definitely one. And then the second is really that opportunity to learn. Like I said, building a business and building operations for me was really kind of new, just really understanding this for-profit world that I'm in. So I have been learning a lot about sales, about marketing, about kind of managing my own books and all sorts of things, working with accountants and everything. And I've really enjoyed that. It's been this opportunity to stretch myself and learn new skills and learn about new disciplines as well.
I love those responses too. It is hard to narrow down the answer for that question, but those are some great responses. Okay, so on the flip side of that, what do you like least about consulting and entrepreneurship?
I think, so I appreciate this question. I think honestly, I don't want to say it's not loneliness, but just trying to figure out you don't really have that natural person you can strategize with right away. Just because I'm small micro business, you know how when you're in an office, sometimes you can just turn around and be like, hey, so-and-so, what do you think about this? I'm thinking this,
yes.
In that moment, or you could Slack them or something like that. I don't really have that. I work out of my home and I'm by myself. So if I have to be really intentional for the times that I do come together with others to remember, okay, I had this question. Let me see if I can run this idea past people. But it's never in that moment because we don't have a water cooler to go around. Right. So I would say that would probably be the hardest thing is not having that immediate feedback, strategic partner to brainstorm with.
Definitely understand that. Also, office here in my home. I have an office also downtown, which it helps me have a meeting place for local clients, and I go down. But it still doesn't solve that issue. I'm in my office down there kind of by myself. But, just for a little shameless plug here, that our mastermind program, you're in that program, you're one of the founding members of that program. That does help to give us that place. And we have the way we have it set up. We have that opportunity to kind of throw an idea out there, a question. It's a safe space to kind of strategize with our members. But you're right. That's a real challenge of entrepreneurship. When you're in your, place of employment, a lot of that's already automatically set up and prepared for you. So it's something that as entrepreneurs, we need to know that that's a part of this journey, but there are ways to, kind of supplement, but it's always something that we need to strive for, I think, in addressing.
Yeah, it's like you have to be very intentional. So that's why I appreciate the mastermind and program, because it does allow me to go into circles and just ask the question at any time, or join the video chat that we have once a month to really be hey, this is what I'm kind of dealing with. How do I adjust that? So those things happen, but I just had to be more intentional about it.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Awesome. Okay. So one more question for you. Well, maybe two. So I love asking this question because as the entrepreneur and the business owner and the creative, we articulate that. We kind of close that loop, tie it up and can express that. And then other people really get to understand more. So the question is, in what ways are you advancing public health with your business?
So there's a couple of different ways, and I kind of see them as overarching areas. And one is to really build community. And the second is connected to that and really helping people see themselves as decision makers in the planning process. So for both of those, I find it so important to make sure everyone feels involved and incorporated when it comes to either strategic planning or developing, looking at our programs or looking at developing a policy and advocacy agenda. Everyone needs to be involved. So people have an opportunity to get to know a little bit more about each other in different ways than they expected through the ways that I work with them. But then also making sure that each person has an opportunity to provide that input and is participating in the decision-making process at some level to create whatever we're trying to create. So for me, I feel like that's very public health centric because it is supporting involvement across the spectrum of peoples and creating that community to really create those health outcomes we seek.
Yeah, that's an important point. We're co-creating, and you mentioned that a little earlier, and that's important for people to hear. If you think about going into a job, we have a position description, you go in and you're handed deliverables, you're told when things are due and you do what you do, and you have to turn things in and then you go to the next project. Someone else is designing all of those, bringing that work in and then assigning it to you. As the business owner, as the entrepreneur, you've got to do all of that, but you've also got to figure out what your clients' needs are. And sometimes they don't come clearly. They may come and say, we need this. But when you start talking about it, it may look a little different as you start to work through it. And sometimes it's just, they don't know exactly what they need. So it's a lot of conversations, a lot of figuring out as you're working through this. So that problem solving skill set that you mentioned earlier, I think that really is important to have no matter what you decide to do as an entrepreneur or consultant. So wonderful. This has been so much fun. Now we're going to share links to your business and to you on the show notes, but where is the best place for people to connect with you?
Definitely LinkedIn, either my personal page or you can send a message through my business page as well. Check those really frequently. So I'll definitely get back to you. And I look forward to connecting to others. I love to learn from others and I also love to build into others as well. So I look forward to meeting with you all soon or hearing from you soon.
Thank you, Andrea. And we will provide those links to the show notes for this episode. So make sure that you go to publichealthentrepreneurs.com and click on the podcast and then scroll down. This will be episode 25. So you'll be able to find it, but just look for Andrea's name. We have direct links, like I said, to her website and to LinkedIn. And I encourage you to reach out. And when you do reach out on LinkedIn, let her know that you heard her on this podcast. That'd be a great conversation starter. And even, I guess, for bonus, you can tell her what made you want to reach out, what resonated with you. I'm making it easy for you guys to connect. So Well, thank you again, Andrea, for being my guest on this episode. I greatly appreciate you. Continue to do the amazing work that you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.